Sri Lanka is descending deeper into chaos. The country's administration has now issued shoot-at-sight orders to quell the protests. Reports suggest that former Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa has fled after his ancestral home was set on fire by an angry mob. Take a look.
Lanka is in flames. Violent protests rocking the picturesque island nation. Super luxury cars vandalized and burnt in arson attacks. Plush residences of top politicians set on fire in unprecedented display of public fury. The Indian Ocean nation, grappling with its worst ever economic crisis, is now on the brink of a full-blown civil war. Homes of several sitting and former ministers, members of parliament and mayors have been set on fire by protesters, angry over economic hardship, chronic shortage of essential items and runaway inflation. The house of Sri Lanka's former Prime Minister, Mahinda Rajapaksa, who resigned on Monday, was also set ablaze. Protests were staged over acute shortages of fuel and electricity, along with skyrocketing prices of essential commodities. Dramatic images of chopper reportedly evacuating members of ruling party from a stadium surfaced. Former Prime Minister Rajapaksa too left his official residence, Temple Trees, early on Tuesday after military cleared out protesters. The government imposed a nationwide curfew till Wednesday. Anti-government protesters lined up the streets leading to the international airport to block any ministers leaving the country. Speaking to India Today exclusively, former Sri Lankan Cabinet Minister and cricket captain Arjuna Ranatunga blamed the Rajapaksas.
They allowed them to walk towards them. I think it was a highly planned thing. And I blame the police, I blame the forces. They should have easily stopped this thing. This entire thing was planned by most probably the government, but supported by the police and the forces as well.
At least 7 people, including an MP, have died in the flare-up and hundreds have been injured. With Ruxana Rizvi in Colombo and Ashutosh Mishra in Delhi, Bureau Report, India Today.
Akshay Nath is now joining us for the latest. She's joining us from Colombo. Akshay, what's going on? We know that the country is facing massive civil war right there. And at the moment, Sri Lanka as a country seems to be descended into a complete state of chaos. What next? What are you picking up from Sri Lanka right now?
Well, Chaiti, we are currently standing at the Goldface area. This is right next to the old Parliamentary House, not very far from where Mahinda Rajapaksa's official residence was situated, where the agitation had taken place. We can see here all around us, people have been camping and protesting 24/7. There have been people who have been on these streets for the last 33 days or more. And we're seeing that their demand is very simple. They do not want the Rajapaksas to be any part of the government. They want all of them expelled. They want a new system in place. Well, they're saying that the future of the country itself is uncertain. There is no funds. There is no proper plan of action for how to deal with this economic crisis that is one of the worst that Sri Lanka has faced in its last several decades, right from 1948 when Sri Lanka got its independence. This is one of the worst economic crisis that the island nation has witnessed. Meanwhile, we're seeing that the political scenario has also worsened after Mahinda Rajapaksa resigning and Gotabaya Rajapaksa, who's the president of Sri Lanka, requesting the opposition to take charge, but them denying as well. Today, early morning, Gotabaya Rajapaksa had even tweeted out, stating, this is the time for all Sri Lankans to join hand as one to overcome the economic, social and political challenges. And he even urged the Sri Lankan
has been such a fury. There has been houses that have been set under fire as well. And with such a civil war, if you could jog our viewers' memory on how this really started and what is the reason for this particular civil war to take place even in the first place right there in Sri Lanka.
Well, Chaiti, it all started with the exuberant prices that things started getting here. From fuel to electricity to the basic commodity like food, everything started becoming very expensive and people started finding it extremely unaffordable. And the government also started blaming the scenario to the kind of lack of funds that they are facing, the kind of debt crisis that they are in. And at this point of time, I have with me one member of the Inter-University Student Federation. She is one of those people who has been staying here for the last 33 days protesting against the Rajapaksas. Can you tell us what exactly are your demands are? Why did you first place start this protest 33 days back? What was the scenario like then?
To be honest, that is the first things that we are expecting to leave the country, leave the political system, Gotabaya Rajapaksa president, and also the parliament members. Because especially, I'm not interested with political, but as a student and as a youth, as a young, I feel like we are in hopeless in our future. So especially, we are demanding to leave the country, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa and others, and give our stolen money back. Also, the future generation to be in the peace situation in our country.
They want peace, they want a change, they want their stolen money back. That is the hashtag that people here have been putting forward. Go back Gotabaya 2022, and apart from that, give our money back. These are the kind of labels that they have been using, and we can see here all across there have been tents which have been put up, and that is the old parliamentary building that is there right behind the stage that has been put up by these protesters. And we're seeing that the situation is very tense here, Chaiti. I have to tell you, when we were coming back from the airport last night, we were continuously being checked. There were multiple checkpoints where police officials were checking us, and we've even been told that the police officials have been given right to shoot at people if anybody is seen, damaging any kind of public property or trying to incite violence. This is one of the most extreme steps that we're going to see here, because in the last few days we've been seeing intense violent protests.
Yes, absolutely. Be with us right there. Stay with us. Stay with us right there. We're coming back to you. Akshay getting us all those details. Under intense pressure, Mahinda Rajapaksa quit as the Prime Minister yesterday, with the protests only intensified. Some protesters close to Rajapaksa beat up the protesters, set the fire protest tents. This led to a huge backlash and multiple homes were set on fire. So much so that Mahinda Rajapaksa had to be evacuated by air and taken to Sri Lankan naval base. Take a look.
As protests escalated across Sri Lanka, Mahinda Rajapaksa and his family fled the Prime Minister's official residence in a military helicopter and were forced to take refuge at a Sri Lankan naval base at Trincomalee. But protesters reached the Sri Lanka Navy base and protests raged through the day, despite Rajapaksa submitting his resignation as Prime Minister of Sri Lanka on Monday. Overnight protests resulted in more than 40 homes of political leaders associated with the ruling dispensation being torched in Sri Lanka. The ancestral home of the Rajapaksa family was also set on fire by protesters up in arms over the country's worst economic crisis since its birth in 1948.
I think it was a highly unwanted situation created by the Prime Minister who resigned yesterday. These protesters, these peaceful protesters have been protesting for almost 1 month without any violence. I think he and the ministers who provoked these people should take the blame on this issue.
Not satisfied with torching homes, shops and offices of ruling party members and supporters, protesters also brought down the statue of D.A. Rajapaksa, father of the Rajapaksa brothers, insisting on the resignation now of the Sri Lankan President Gotabaya Rajapaksa.
Everyone who is involved in this government, including President Rajapaksa, and Prime Minister Rajapaksa must be held responsible for this inhumane attack. This was a planned attack. This was a thought-out project. This was an act of state terrorism and political terrorism. The Rajapaksas must be held responsible for this.
The Sri Lankan army has now been called out to restore law and order, and shoot-at-sight orders have been issued to ensure that the situation does not spiral out of control after a day of arson and violence.
भारत क्योंकि पड़ोसी देश है श्रीलंका का, भारत चाहता है वहां पर शांति हो, सौहार्दपूर्ण सभी कुछ हो और जो उनका मसला है ठीक से सुलझ जाए, तो हम उम्मीद तो यही करेंगे जो वहां पर गृह युद्ध नहीं होता है, क्योंकि अगर गृह युद्ध होता है तो भारत के लिए भी बहुत बड़ी चिंता बन जाएगी.
New Delhi is watching the situation closely, and the Ministry of External Affairs issued a statement saying, as a close neighbor of Sri Lanka with historical ties, India is fully supportive of its democracy, stability and economic recovery. India has extended this year alone support of $3.5 billion. Despite shoot-at-sight orders and emergency powers given to the army and the police to restore law and order, Sri Lanka totters on the brink of a bloody civil war. Bureau Report, India Today.